All right. Well, good morning and welcome to the third annual multi-agency dealer education training. My name is Luke Van Natter and I am a field manager with the Consumer Credit Division for the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions. I will be your facilitator today. I would like to thank all of you for attending. We have 4 state agencies presenting, so there will be a wealth of useful information shared today. Thank you for being flexible and attending virtually. If you could please keep your microphone muted, and you don't need to have your camera on if you don't want to. In fact, leaving your camera off can help reduce lag and technical issues during the call. If you do have technical issues, please use the chat function to communicate that, or use the raise hand icon to alert us. Maybe Christy and Sherry, if I could ask you to keep an eye on that. If there are any technical issues that come up during the presentation, I would appreciate it. And again, we will be sharing a PowerPoint presentation, so as long as you can view the video, you should be able to see those. I did receive some feedback that the presentations that were uploaded to the meeting invite cannot be seen. So I'll try to reshare those, reshare the meeting invite to see if that helps. But I mean, I have them attached to my version of the presentation. So I'll make sure those get added at some point today so that you can view those in the future. So if I think I've resent the invitation for the meeting, so hopefully those will be on there. Okay, well, we are going to start by watching a special pre-recorded message from the Secretary of State, Holly Sullivan. So if you can give me just 1 second, I am going to load this presentation.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us. Today we have a full agenda for you. We have partnered with almost every state agency that works with your business. It is our hope that when you leave today, you have a better understanding of how state government works and how we can help you do business in Indiana. My team and I are always looking for ways to improve our service levels and our relationships with our customers. We recognize that each and every dealer in Indiana has a huge dollar investment in your business. Our goal is to be service-oriented and to the thousands of auto dealers we regulate. While it is our job to make sure you're in compliance with state rules and regulation, we are also here to partner with you. Our goal is to be a resource for your team. If there's a minor compliance issue, we often use this as an opportunity for education. And I'm a firm believer that we can all learn from our mistakes. This is the most common route we take if we believe there's an error or a misunderstanding of the law. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments about our work, please do not hesitate to call my office. Our goal is to work at the speed of business so we can strive to accommodate your requests as quickly as possible. We understand that promptly returning around paperwork is our key to helping you be as successful as possible. As a former small business owner, myself, I know how important it is to process paperwork quickly so we can move forward with the real work. Again, I just want to thank you and have a great day.
Okay. So the agenda for today is as follows, and I'll say the times are going to be approximate based on the length of the presentations and discussions. So from 9 to 9:15, we're obviously doing the check-in and welcome. From 9:15 to 10:30, the Secretary of State presentation by Sherry Van Hook. From 10:30 to 11:45, the Department of Revenue presented by Nancy Tyree. Then from 11:45 to 12:45, we'll have a lunch break. From 12:45 to 2, the Attorney General's office, presentation by Mark Snodgrass. And then from 2 to 3:15, I will be presenting the Department of Financial Institutions presentation. So these sessions will consist of presentations approximately 45 minutes in length, followed by a 30-minute Q&A in front of the entire group. These will be interactive Q&A sessions, so please don't be shy. Now is your opportunity to ask each of these agencies any question you'd like. As you think of questions during the presentations, please either place them in the chat or write them down so you don't forget to ask during the Q&A. We would ask that you keep your questions generic and don't divulge any sensitive or proprietary information. If you have questions that are very specific or sensitive, we'll likely ask you for your contact information and then get your questions answered offline. So if no one has any initial questions, I will hand the presentation over to Sherry Van Hook from the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Luke. I'll try to bring up my presentation, and if you could assist me on telling me that you can see it, I would appreciate it. Okay, are you able to see the presentation?
Not yet, Sherry.
Is it thinking?
Doesn't look like it. I can still just see my team screen.
It's loading. Are we ready to go?
I can see it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining our presentation today. I am like Luke. I hope that by the end of the day that maybe you're a little more familiar with the Auto Dealer Service Division, our role in your business, and also helping the consumer. As the Secretary mentioned, we are here to help you maybe clarify some discrepancies that you might have in the Indiana rules and regulations. Again, as Luke said, if you have questions, put them in the chat room or make note. Again, if it's something that's sensitive, we will direct you towards the examiner in your area. So today we will have an overview, and these are some of the common things that we see when we do an audit of a dealer or we have complaints. These are the common violations, what to expect during an audit, notary public information, enforcement action, user roles in the dealer portal, current online functions, notes about renewals, odometer disclosure requirements, Secretary of State contact, and of course the examiners in your area and contact information. Common violations that we see: failure to deliver title within 31 days, improper use of interim plates and the dealer plates, failure to maintain or produce records, failure to disclose rebuilt status, unpermitted offsite sales. Failure to timely deliver the title. This is an issue that we have more complaints on than any other common violations. So a reminder, all licensed dealers have 31 days to deliver title to the purchaser. So what that means is if you sell a vehicle today, September the 1st, you would provide the title to the purchaser or the lien holder within 31 days from today's date. If you do not have the title at the time of selling the vehicle to the consumer, you must provide to the consumer the dealer title affidavit, which this affidavit is on our website. We will visit our website when I'm done, and you will be able to see how valuable this piece of information is. Because at the bottom of the document is a notice to the customer of if they don't receive the title within 31 days, the steps they would need to take to notify the dealer. Proof of delivery. There are many ways for you as the dealer to deliver the title to the consumer. You can do a U.S. mail receipt. You can do a certified mail receipt. You can do UPS, FedEx. You can have them sign and date on the deal jacket. If you use a title processor, then such as DealerTrack, Opus, Reg USA, then you would have a receipt from the third party as to when the title was presented to them within that 31-day window. You might even take some of your transactions to your local BMV, and then you would have a BMV transaction receipt. I would also suggest if you do take title work to your local BMV, you might find out for sure, will they be able to process your paperwork, or is there a limit of the number of transactions that you can bring in? Purchaser's obligation. This is something else that could delay the delivery of the title. Did they make the initial payments to you at the time of purchase? Did they provide a title to you at the time of purchase without any undisclosed liens? And when we just say undisclosed liens, this is something that a lot of people do not divulge to the dealer. Do they have a state tax lien on that title? Do they have a second lien? Maybe they changed lien holders and didn't tell you which lien holder they currently have on the title. Failure to deliver the title. This is for the consumers. The consumer can send you a 10-day demand letter, as stated in the affidavit. It can go through the Office of the Attorney General's office or a court-ordered title if you do not provide the title to the consumer within that 10-day demand letter time period. There's potential for increase in penalties towards the dealership failing to provide the title to the consumer after the 10-day demand letter is sent. So these are things that I would recommend that the dealer, we're all busy, pays close attention to where is the title in process for the consumer. If a consumer reaches out to you, it would be a good idea to respond to the consumer in a timely manner. We all know with COVID that it has been rather difficult to actually provide the title to the consumer within that 31-day window. So we have posted on our website, and here's the information from the Secretary of State's office, suggestions for title delivery. I would like to remind you that we are not the BMV, so that we do not have the ability to search to see where your title is in the process once you have submitted in to the BMV for processing. Unfortunately, you will have to reach out to your local BMV or call that 1-800 number that the BMV has provided. But understanding title delivery deadline is important for you. So just remember, title was hand delivered to the customer within 31 days. I would recommend that you would have the customer not only sign the front of the deal jacket and date it, but maybe create a form that they have received the title. Acknowledgement of a receipt is always a good idea to have. Title was mailed to the consumer before the 31 days. Again, you probably want to use something with a trackable method, certified, UPS, FedEx, signature required. That way you know that the title was sent to them within that 31-day window and that they did receive their title. And this is real important for this simple fact. If you do send the title to the consumer by a trackable method, it comes back to you undeliverable, then you want to put it in that deal jacket. Do not open up that letter. Put it in the deal jacket. If the consumer contacts you or they filed a complaint with us, you're able to show that the title was sent out, it was returned back to the dealership for whatever reason, and you have your documentation on hand. So that's real important. Title application was completed and accurately submitted to the BMV for 31 days. Again, that would go back to if you use a third party or do you go to the BMV yourself and process the paperwork. Understanding online options. Customers are able to register before the title is printed and mailed. This seems to be a little bit of confusion for some consumers. They feel if they don't have the BMV title app or if they don't have the title, that they're not able to register and plate their vehicles. That is not the case. They can go to the BMV with their driver's license and a valid insurance card for that vehicle, and they can register and plate their vehicle. As soon as the title to their vehicle is listed, they can also go to the create their BMV account. I strongly recommend that consumers do establish a BMV account so that they can track when the title has been processed. Keep documentation, valuable information. Document, document, document. Keep ample documentations of your efforts to get the title timely delivered. Again, communications with the BMV. The tracking method that you might use, the third-party vendors, lots of third-party vendors. And if some of you already use a third-party vendor, you know that they will send you emails. Sometimes they send you back a letter requesting additional information. That is important. You want to keep that in the deal jacket. For if we have a complaint for a non-delivery of title, you'll be able to support that you sent it off within the 31 days. And here's the communication between not only you and the BMV, but also your third-party provider. Sometimes you have communications between yourself and a lien holder for additional documentation. So document, document, document. Also, try to address those issues before they happen. So say, for instance, you buy a vehicle at the auction, or it's a trade-in, and you have not received the title. You want to document, document, document. And maybe you might want to consider, I know it's probably not something that you want to consider, but how about putting the vehicle back in the back lot, mark it not for sale, until you know the exact location of that title and when you will receive that title. Any and all guidance received from the BMV, we will post that on our website. They do sometimes send out notifications, so always check our website. And I'd like to remind you, we are not the BMV. If you have title questions, please contact the BMV at 1-888-692-6841 or BMV Titles and Registrations. Those are the folks that you want to reach out to when you have questions about the progress of your title. The next thing that we always see issues with is improper use of interim plates. Remember, only one interim plate can be issued to a consumer. Interim plates to be printed on purchase date and not delivery date. Now this sometimes gets a little confusing, especially if you are a big RV dealer and somebody has custom ordered an RV. Well, the purchase date is not going to be the same as the day that they picked it up. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 months later. If you can show that the purchase date, it was ordered on this date, and then it was provided to the consumer on this date, that's when your paper plate would be issued. You sure don't want to issue a paper plate 3 or 4 months back when it was ordered and now they picked it up and you can't give them another paper plate. So common sense prevails here. Document, document, document. But for those of you who have vehicles in their inventory, the purchase date is the date that money exchanged hands, that contracts were signed, and that is the date I drove off the vehicle with I drove off the lot with the vehicle I purchased. But I always like to tell dealers, caution the consumer that that paper plate is only good for 45 days. So if they have their title in hand and they go to the BMV and it's past the 45 days, they're into day 47, day 50, they will be subject to late fees. So please let them know that paper plate is only good for 45 days. Now, I always like to tell the dealers that doesn't mean you have 45 days to provide the title to the consumer. You still are held to the 31-day delivery date. If the consumer is check expiration dates of the consumer's license plates. Sometimes consumers want to transfer a plate over from a vehicle that they might be trading in, which that is an option that they have, but you want to check the registration before you allow that to happen. Is it going to expire in 3 days? Is it going to expire in 6 months? Is the name on the registration for the vehicle they're trading in matches the name of the person that you just sold a vehicle to? Is it vehicle for vehicle? If I have a pickup truck that has an In God We Trust plate on it and I buy a small car, of course I can't put that plate on that car. Vehicle for vehicle. Recording incorrect information result in issues for the consumer. When you're in Plates on Demand and you are entering the information related to the title, year, make, VIN, caller, consumer's name, proofread yourself many times before you print that paper plate, because sometimes we'll transpose numbers within the VIN. Sometimes an 8 might become a B, or a 0 would become an O, and we know there's no O's in VINs. So please check yourself. Now, you can never alter an interim plate, so if you print that plate off and you see there's an error, do not take a marker, do not take any white out and alter the interim plate. You can, within 72 hours, if you notice that you have made a mistake, you can go back in and reprint that plate and you can make those corrections. However, you want to keep that plate initially issued, write void on it, the reason why you're redoing it, and you want to make a comment in your comment section on plates on demand. And that would be beneficial not only when we see your plates on demand log, but you can also justify why you printed 2 paper plates for the same vehicle within that 72-hour period. The reissuing a paper plate means just this. It is a duplicate. So say the consumer buys a vehicle from you and they go through the car wash the next day and the paper plate is destroyed. They can come back to you. You can reissue a paper plate. It doesn't give them any more time. It doesn't change the date of the plate number. It is just so that you can assist the consumer and they still have 45 days. Caution consumers, don't go through the car wash or a snowstorm or a thunderstorm with your paper plate. This is the possibility. Proper use of dealer license plates. This is something we see quite frequently. When a dealer is not able to provide a title to the consumer within 31 days, they try to give the consumer a dealer plate to operate their vehicle on. Well, that again is a violation for you as a dealer. But you can allow a consumer to use a dealer plate if you have a prospective buyer or you have a service customer. Now there's a limit, so the plate can only be used for 10 days. My recommendation is when you are going to take that type of use of your dealer plate for a prospective buyer or service customer, keep a copy of the driver's license of the person you have provided the plate to. Have them sign a form that says they are taking dealer plate, whatever, and they will return it back to whatever date, and also the year, make, and VIN of the vehicle that plate is on. For this reason, if the plate is lost, then you're able to trace that plate back to, I gave it to customer so-and-so on September the 1st. It would be helpful for not only you, but for also law enforcement. Cannot use plates on vehicles that have been sold. Again, that goes back to if you're not able to provide a title to a consumer within that 31-day window and they come back to you, you cannot give them a paper plate, or I'm sorry, a dealer plate to put on that vehicle to drive around until you actually get the title. Cannot be used on shuttle vans, parts trucks, or etc. So anything vehicle that the dealership uses for the dealership's daily business, you must title and register in the state of Indiana. A dealer plate is not eligible to be put on that vehicle. Failure to disclose rebuilt status. This is something that we do encounter quite a bit. The law is very clear that if you are selling a vehicle that has a rebuilt status on it, you must in writing notify the consumer before the sale is completed that they are purchasing a rebuilt vehicle. Now, we have a wonderful form on our website. I strongly encourage that you would print that off and use it as your disclosure. If you do not want to use that, you have to put it in writing to the consumer. It's not a matter of handing the title to the consumer. Put it on the bill of sale or create your own rebuilt notification. But the consumer must be notified prior to the sale of the vehicle. Unpermitted offsite sales. This is something that we see mainly during the summer months. I haven't seen as many in my area as I have in the past, but you might see a dealer set up a location at their local fairgrounds, or maybe at a mall that they have in their area. Let's just say Greenwood Park Mall. seems to be one of the popular ones in Greenwood. This is okay for you to do, provided that you apply for an off-site sale permit. And with that permit, there are some regulations. We do have some guidelines on our website for you to review, which are very helpful. But things to remember with the permit: you cannot be any more than a 20-mile radius from your business location. You must submit the permit to the division 10 days or 2 weeks prior to the offsite sale. There is a fee. You will also need to submit a zoning affidavit with your permit. You can fax the information in. You can scan it and send it as an email. You can even mail it in. It does say that you can hand deliver it, but I would strongly recommend either fax, email, or scanning it to us. With that permit, you will be required to list the dates of your sale from when it starts to when it ends. I would also like to remind you there are no Sunday sales allowed in Indiana. So if your sale is going from a Wednesday to a Wednesday and you have Sunday in between there, then you will need to close the offsite sale down during that Sunday timeframe. Now, with that also, you can have a tent set up. You can have a building set there. You can have an open air, but you still need to submit the permit request. You will also be required to post that offsite sale permit at the location. Remember, the permit is only for your business and your business only. So if you have another dealer who wants to join in with your offsite sale permit, that dealer will have to obtain their own permit, and they will have to have a separation between your business and their business. Failure to maintain or produce records. This is something that we see quite frequently also. Dealers, you're subject to an audit at any time during the normal business hours. Now, a lot of times dealers will say, well, you only work Monday through Friday, Sherry. Will you come on a Saturday? You bet I can. If I feel that I need to come on a Saturday, I will adjust my hours during my work week to come and visit to you. Records must be made available to the division upon request. This is something that a lot of dealers do not realize, that when we request sales records, then you are to provide them to us. Now, do we just stop in and knock on the door and say, hey, I'd like to see? We do not. We will call you. We will send you an email with a specific date and time. We might even send you a list of records that we would like to review upon our arrival. We might even ask you to send them to us in an email as scanned documents. But just remember, when we contact you and request records, please respond to us immediately, either by a phone call or with an email that you acknowledge that you have received our request. Normally within that request, there's a window of time for you to provide it, and it's usually 5 days. So if you're not able to get those records to us in 5 days, reach out to the examiner in your area who has contacted you. There's always a way to work around something. We're accommodating just as much as you are accommodating. Of course, the deal jackets that we might request, at a minimum, we'll ask for your bill of sale. Now, with this bill of sale, I would say to you, do not use the generic bill of sale that is on the BMV website. It does not have all the pertinent information that is required to have on a bill of sale. There's the STU 108. You have a copy of the reassignment of the title, front and back. The 31-day affidavit if you was not able to provide the consumer the title at the time of purchase. Here's one that gets everybody: the Federal Buyer's Guide, or as-is warranty, as we sometimes refer them to. This is important. You need to have one in your deal jacket. There are other documentations that we might request. How about the finance contract? Maybe you're a buy here, pay here type business. You will have a finance contract with that consumer. Or maybe you have a contract with other financial institutions. You'll have a finance contract for that institution. How about if you bought the vehicle at the auction or it was a trade-in? Those are documentations that we will ask over and above. If you advertise on the internet, maybe Facebook Marketplace, or how about you have your own website? I would recommend that if you do advertise on the internet, Keep a copy of the advertisement that you posted, just in case there's a discrepancy between you and the consumer as to what was advertised for the condition of that vehicle. Again, documentation, documentation, documentation. Now, will that get you out of a fine? Well, it will be taken under consideration of what you did provide, and the more you can provide, the better it is for the examiner to review. What to expect during an audit? There we go. Well, when we review your deal jackets, we'll ask for one specifically with a time frame. I just mentioned that. Review your interim plate log. Remember, we can see your plate log online just as well as you can see your plate log. We'll ask for documentations related to your business. Always have available your insurance, your bond, your registered retail merchant certificate, and your dealer's license. Now, as far as we hear this a lot, oh, I've submitted my insurance or I've submitted my bond into the division. You should have that. That is true. We do have availability to review it, but we like to see it in your business because you are to have that available. Proof of ownership for vehicles in your inventory. This is something that we see frequently. We would ask maybe for the title for the vehicle in your inventory. If you're a new car dealer, manufacturer certificate of origin. How about an auction slip? Consignment agreements. This is something that we do have a form on our website, but remember, dealer-to-dealer consignments are not acceptable. So the consignment agreement that refers here is if somebody as an individual comes to you and says, I'd like to sell my vehicle, but I don't have the time or the exposure. Can I put my vehicle on your lot? You can fill out a consignment agreement, but remember, you are the facilitator between the consignor and the consignee. So the dealer plate that you have cannot be used on that vehicle as a test drive. The consigned person will provide to you a valid insurance and a valid plate in order for the vehicle to be test drive. Now, a lot of times a dealer will say, but Sherry, wonder if that plate gets stolen off of the back of the vehicle. Well, common sense would say to me, why don't you take it off every night, put it in the deal jacket you created for the consign, and then you keep it in your office. And if somebody wants to test drive the vehicle, you pull that out, you put it on the back of the vehicle, and then they can drive it. Just always keep in mind, you are the facilitator. So if you're going to have consignments, you might inquire with the consumer who put the vehicle on your lot. Do you have a lien on this vehicle? If so, where's the lien? How much do you owe? How quickly can you obtain the title if it's sold? The notary public information. This is really important too. Most dealers will have notary publics in their business, which is outstanding. But always remember, a notary public is an officer of the state of Indiana. So therefore, they are bound by certain rules and regulations. So before notarizing, the notary should require from this person they are notarizing their signature, proof of their ID. That could be a driver's license. It could be an ID card. It could be a U.S. government issued card. Maybe they go to university. As long as their picture is on there and it is valid. Also, I would caution that if you are going to notarize, you cannot notarize a blank power of attorney. You must have the person in front of you or credible witnesses. Enforcement action. We do have the authority to take enforcement action, whether you're a licensed dealer or an unlicensed dealer. A lot of people do get confused about how many vehicles as an individual can I sell? That is a question we have continuously. Well, you can sell as an individual 12 vehicles in a 12-month period, providing those vehicles are titled in your name and you sell as an individual. Now, if you set up in the corner of Walmart and you have flags and you have a sign and it appears that you are operating an unlicensed location, that is when we could possibly take enforcement action. But we like to talk to people. We like to tell them what the rules and regulations are, because sometimes it's just a matter of not knowing. We look into the dealers to be our eyes and ears for unlicensed offsite sales. So a lot of times you'll see the sales in people's front yard. Neighbors notice so-and-so has 3 cars in their front yard this month. And then next month, there's 3 more. Well, that is really suspicious. And that is something that we probably want to take a look at and maybe just educate that person of the Indiana rules and regulations. And if they want to set up as a dealer, we're there to help them set up. Dealer search functions with dealer orders and consent agreements posted on our website. And I'll show you that later on, how you can actually search to see if somebody is a licensed dealer in Indiana, or maybe we have taken enforcement action against that dealer. It is public record. Examples of enforcements. We have taken suspensions or revocations against dealers. We have permanently barred owner or owners. There can be fines up to $10,000 per violation. The one that we do probably the most is the non-delivery. So the first time that you have a non-delivery violation, it's $100. The second one is $250, and the third one is $500, and it's $500 thereafter. So please make sure that you are providing the title to the consumer within that 31 days, because this dollar amount can add up to a lot of money and it would hurt your business. Cease and desist orders. We do issue cease and desist orders. We can take civil or criminal action. Now, just remember, we try to work with you. Our goal is not to penalize somebody, to fine somebody heavily, or take civil or criminal action. We really would like to work with you to help you with your business. User roles in the dealer portal. If some of you are already licensed dealers, you probably have already set up your dealer portal. You're a primary user. You are the owner. You have an administrator. Maybe that's your business partner, or maybe that's your controller in the office. You have finance and sales people. You have general plates, general office, general plates, and office. So with each role, there are specific rules that they would need to apply to and what they can do with their approval. So the primary user is you. You are the owner. So you don't have to do anything but say, I'm the owner and I'm the primary user. You have access to everything in the dealer portal. We strongly recommend the primary user on the account be the owner, officer, or partner, and that primary user logins are not shared for any reason. And here's the reason. Office managers and sales managers come and go. And if you share your information with them, then they still have the ability after they leave your business to maybe go in and print paper plates. And with that, then that makes you responsible for any plates that they might generate and sell on the street. Should a current or past employee abuse the ability to print plates from the portal? So say, for instance, you have an employee who, again, has exited your business. They still have access and they might go in and print paper plates. Or maybe they are issuing multiple paper plates without your knowledge. It goes back to the owners of the business to monitor that, to ensure that multiple plates are not being issued. So therefore, if you are going to allow other users to use the paper plates on demand, I would recommend they have their own login and their own email. So that way you can track who's issuing paper plates. User roles in the dealer portal. As I mentioned earlier, the administrator, that is the second person. This role has all the functions of the primary person. So that might be, again, like your controller. Finance and sales. Of course, those individuals do have the ability to print interim plates. They can order and pay for credits online. They can request an increase, request a dealer plates, and pay the invoices. General plates, that is the person who can just only generate paper plates. They have no other function other than that they can print a paper plate for the consumer. Office general, that is probably maybe your bookkeeper, and they can pay your invoices, request additional dealer plates, increase in dealer and interim plates. So that might be your bookkeeper / controller. General plates in office, again, those individuals would have the ability to print interim plates, request additionals, pay invoices. Primary user can be changed using the administrative owner or officer application. There is a form on our website. So maybe you no longer want to be the primary owner of the business and you want to hand it down to the first officer or partner. There is a form on our website that you would fill out and submit to our division. It must be notarized. It must be signed by all parties requesting a change in ownership. Then that person would be assigned a new portal usage. I would say that if you are going to change, please submit it within at least 10 days prior to making any changes in your owner, officer, or partnership, because it could maybe delay the use of the interim plate or maybe even suspend it for a short period of time. Current online functions. If you haven't visited our website, please do. We have a wonderful website. It is ever changing. Our website is not only geared for you as a dealer, but also for the general public to review. The things that we post on our website is educational for everyone. But you as a dealer can renew your license online. All applications for license are online. You can report a dealer's license plate lost or stolen or mutilated online. You can request lost or stolen or mutilated plates. You can request an increase, not only in your dealer plates, but your paper plates. And you can pay your invoice online. Please review our website, even just down to the salesperson that's in your business. Have them review our website. Everybody should be familiar with the Auto Dealer Service Division website. It's a good educational tool. Notes about renewals. This is something that I just think is wonderful. You can submit your renewals now up to 90 days prior to your license expiring. So please take advantage of that. Don't wait until day 3 before your license is ready to expire and send all your information into the division. You do receive notifications on your dashboard. You receive notifications 90 days out. You receive notifications 75 days out, 45 days out that your license is due, your bond, and your insurance is due. So please pay attention to your dashboard. The more people who look at that dashboard and remind others, hey, we need to get this done, the better you'll be. Delaying could reduce your paper plates on demand to a suspension. And it's Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and there is nobody in the office so that you can issue a paper plate. So please pay close attention to that. You can check the renewal of your status. So if you've sent everything in and you want to know just where that is with the division, go online and check. Plate renewal, of course, you're not going to get those stickers or those registrations until you have paid for that renewal online with a major credit card. And that seems to be a question I get frequently. Somebody will call and say, Sherry, I submitted my renewals, but I haven't got my stickers or registrations or my plates. Well, have you paid? That's the first question I will ask. Have you submitted your payment online? And if they say no, that's going to be the first thing I'm going to say. Go online with your credit card and submit your payment. You must be responsible to submit your current copies of the bond and insurance to our office. Remember, we cannot take anything but the bond and the insurance made out to the Indiana Secretary of State's office. So if you want to send your whole policy, they're going to send it back to you. There are specific forms that must be completed and submitted to our office. Now, if you're going to let your insurance company take control of that and submit it for you, that's awesome. But again, do a follow-up to make sure that they have submitted it within a reasonable amount of time. And don't forget, Secretary of State is a certificate holder. Contacting our office at the end of the month, I would strongly suggest that you would send an email before you got on the phone and called. You might be on hold for a considerable amount of time. Emails are answered quickly. If the clerk cannot answer the email, sometimes she'll forward that on to the examiner in your area. So please do not wait till the last minute to reach out to our office with a question. Reference your renewals. Odometer disclosure requirements. This is something that has changed recently. It's one thing that the BMV will kick back to you if the vehicle has been you've marked it exempt and it doesn't meet the guidelines. You probably want to go on the website and review the documentation as far as the requirements. And the reason this is changing is we're keeping our vehicles longer than 10 years. So in the past, we've always been mindset of if the vehicle's 10 years of age, I can exempt that out. Well, that's no longer going to be the case. So you want to refresh your memory, print this off, go on the website, give it to your salespeople, give it to your title clerk, anybody who's going to touch that title or write an odometer statement. You probably want to educate them on the rules and regulations. I would hate to think that your title was delayed because an exemption was written. Our contact information, here's our direct line. Of course, it's a 317. We don't have a 1-800 number, or you can email us at dealers@sos.in.gov, or you can go to our website. So those are the contact informations for you to review. Here's the list of the examiners in your area. There are 8 of us in the state. So depending on where your business is, if you're in the North Central area, of course, that's Christy Gaines, and there's her email address. If you're in the Northeast, Rebecca Kimberly. If you're in the West, that is me. If you are in the Central, say Marion County, then you probably have contact with Trey Jefferson or Leda Lopez. If you're in the South, you've probably been in contact with Carol Poe, who has been around many years. So I think she knows a lot of people in that Southeast area. The Southwest, of course, is Casey Meeks. And then we have Rhonda Miller, who not only is our outreach coordinator, but she also is a field examiner, and she substitutes sometimes for us when we need help. So with that being said, I am going to attempt to go to our website and just kind of briefly review our website with you folks. Again, take time to review the website, not only with your salespeople, but your finance people, maybe your title clerk. Maybe just make that a monthly training that you might want to do. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As you notice, our screen is very user-friendly. We have over here on the left-hand side administrative actions, which I mentioned earlier. If you want to go in and you want to look to see if somebody has had administrative actions taken against them with the dealer division, you can go in and search. Online dealer account, online help guidelines. This is probably one of the best things that we have on our website. Online help guidelines. If you don't know how to set up plates on demand, if you don't know how to set up your portals, here's online help guidelines. License applications. Remember I said our applications are all online. So if you're going to be an auction facility or salvage recycler or converter manufacturer, dealer new, dealer used, which most of you probably are, then this is where you would go to fill out your application online. You would submit all your documentation. And I bet you've probably been reached out by some of the clerks of requesting additional documentation. License changes. Okay, are you going to change your name or change your address? Are you going to change ownerships? Are you going out of business? If you are going out of business, you must submit a cease business affidavit to the division, signed by all parties, notarized, send that into the office along with your dealer's license and the dealer plates. And a lot of times dealers will say, but sure, I lost some of my plates. Well, that's okay. Then you can get from local law enforcement what we call a lost plate affidavit and submit that so that we know that that plate has been reported to law enforcement. Forms. Here are all the forms that I have pretty much referred to during this presentation. Here's your bond, your zoning affidavit, your off-site sales permit, cease business affidavit, amending your ownership information, requesting additional plates, Look, the dealer title affidavit that I mentioned, the consignment agreement is on here. We've also given you a link for the BMV title forms. So please look at our website and access as much as possible. Requirements. Dealer bond requirements, offsite sale requirements. Remember, I was talking about the permit. If you don't clearly understand what you need, go to where it says offsite sale requirements. There's information there of how to submit an offsite sale permit. I would like to caution you, if you are a salvage recycler or a transfer dealer, you do not qualify for offsite sale permits. Title delivery. Again, this link gives you the rules and regulations for title delivery. Here's one, resources. Not only for you, but for the general public. I like the one at the bottom. Search for recalls by my VIN. How many times has somebody asked you, has there been a recall on this vehicle? And you don't know. Well, you can go on our website, you can type in the VIN, it will connect you with NHTSA, and you can search to see if there's been any recalls on that vehicle. Maybe you might want to do it before you even sell the vehicle, just to be on the safe side. Contact us. Here's our hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. Our mailing address, 302 West Washington. Our division contact information. Rachel Ehrlich is our division director. There's her email address. Scott Connor is our deputy director, his email address. Caitlin Connect is license and compliance manager. Senior investigator is Don Cloud. License and compliance clerks and staffs. You might have been in contact with some of these young ladies already. Here is a map of the counties and where you are depending on the examiner, but you can see we've color coded it for you, and we've also given you our email address. So anytime that you have a question or concern, please reach out to the examiner in your area. Sometimes it's just a matter of a simple, hey, let me help you with that. So with that being said, I thank you for your time. Now we have a Q&A. If anybody has any questions or concerns that you would like to bring up to us, feel free to do so.
Thank you, Sherry. That's a lot of good information. Looks like you've already got 3 questions in the chat. So are you able to pull those up and look at them, or would you like me to read them off to you?
Would you read them off to me, please?
Sure. So, so Sean was the first one to ask a question. So he wants to know, can we notarize power of attorney if witnessed on a video call and ID verified on the call? With customers refraining from going to the dealership due to COVID, it can be difficult to make arrangements to have the POA signed when the customers won't come into the dealership in person.
Well, Sean, that's a really good question, and one I've never had to experience before. But what I'm going to say is we're going to take your information and we're going to refer that over to the division that handles the notaries here in Indiana, and maybe they can better assist you with that through Indiana Biz.
Okay. All right. So the next question came in from Tina, excuse me, and it says, in regards to slide 5, where a customer can register even if the title is not done yet, she asked, if does this also pertain to leases? Can a lease here, pay here customer register before I have applied for the title app?
Well, Tina, if you haven't applied, what that means is if the title application has been submitted to the BMV and it's in process to be perfected, then the consumer can register the vehicle. But if it's a lease that you still are perfecting the paperwork and haven't submitted it to the BMV, the vehicle cannot be registered then.
Okay, and then, you know, for those that are asking questions in the chat, feel free to, you know, come off mute and ask additional questions or clarification if you need it as well. Let's see. All right, and then the next question came in from Kaylin. So my dealership sells cargo trailers, not automobiles. When it comes to the federal buyer's guide requirements, how are we to follow that as a cargo trailer dealer?
Cargo trailers are not, they are exempt from having the federal buyer's guide. So she wouldn't have to really worry about that. Now, if she sells an automobile, she will have to worry about that, but it is a non-motorized vehicle.
Okay. Liz asked if the documents would be made available to us. So during Sherry's presentation, I revised the meeting invite and attempted to resend that to everybody. I know some people have said that they can see the presentations attached. So please let me know if that is not the case, and I will I'll try it again. I mean, worst case scenario is that I would email it to everybody once the presentation's over, but it should be attached to the meeting invite. So. All right, so so we have another question from Tina. So in regards to slide 6, dealers can only issue one interim plate. What is the fine if the dealer gets hit with it if caught? We have customers that ask for a second plate all the time, and we have never done it, but it would be nice to be able to tell them dealers can get in trouble and have a substantial fine if caught.
Well, Tina, that's a very good question, and your response is really good for this reason. When we notice that a dealer is issuing more than one paper plate to a consumer or many consumers, then that is part of the investigation that is completed. It is submitted to our legal department, and they will reach out to you. I cannot tell you what the fine is going to be. That is something from the legal department. But that's a really good question, Tina. And I know you, Tina, and you will not issue that paper plate.
Okay. And then in relation to your first question, Tina, if you look in the chat, a link has been placed in there in reference to getting those documents notarized. So if you want to take a look at that link, that should help get some of your questions answered.
Yeah. Well, and Tina, with that being said, Rachel just sent out a notice to me that it could be up to $500 per multiple issuance of paper plate. Now, so there's a good reason not to issue a paper plate. I wouldn't tell that to a consumer, but I would keep that in the back of my mind.
Okay, lots of questions coming in, which is great. So, so a question from Amanda: if we are going all digital, I think what documents can be signed electronically?
Well, we do accept the finance contracts. We do accept the bill of sale. We do accept the ST-108. As far as the notary, I think that's something we need to address with Indiana Biz as far as can we accept that electronically.
Okay. Yep, and as I mentioned, there's been a link placed in the chat that to that website that should hopefully get some information there. So. All right, and we've got another question here. So Jamie C has asked, do we have any recourse if the customer does not provide a clear trade title? Can we hold title work on the sold unit?
That's a good question, and that happens frequently. If the consumer does not provide to you a valid title, then you as the dealer have recourse. You can either repossess the vehicle back. You can reverse the deal. You can apply for a duplicate title for that consumer. I would caution you, if you are going to take a vehicle in on trade, please make sure that that title is in the consumer's name. Please ensure that there are no additional liens on that title. Even ask, where is your title being held and what lien holder? Many people do not understand where their title is. Is the title involved in a divorce situation? That might be another concern. Is the title the consumer driving a vehicle that mom and dad have listed as owners, and now the son or daughter is attending university, and they've said, hey, go trade that vehicle in and get you what you need? Well, okay. Has the student got permission from mom and dad in writing to trade that vehicle in? So I know it's a little bit more work, but it will save you many hours of grief.
Great. Thanks for those answers, Sherry. So got more questions coming in and a little bit of feedback. So Sean had indicated that his dealership does lots of e-signed transactions, but the BMV will not accept an e-signed POA. So
Oh, good to know.
just
Good
his
to know.
experience being listed there in the chat. So thank you, Sean. Robert's Auto asks, do we need to include a bill of sale in the deal jacket, even if we have provided the title at the time of sale?
Yes, the bill of sale is part of the deal jacket. And this is what I'd like for dealers to clearly understand. We need to know the deal jacket tells us a story. Where did you purchase the vehicle from and who did you sell it to? And everything else in between. Any documents missing breaks the chain of what has happened to that vehicle. So it's real important to have all those documents.
Okay, so we've got another question from Tina. She apologized for asking so many questions, but we're thrilled with all the questions. That's really the one of the points of today is to get all your questions answered. So thanks for asking them. So she's curious about the dealer title affidavit, form 46633. It reads, for retail sales, is this required for leases? We currently use an older version, so she said she'll fix it ASAP, but it doesn't read right since we're not turning over an actual title to the customer.
Well, that is a very good question. Even if it's a lease, it's still a sale. So Tina, I'd like for you to start using the current dealer title affidavit, and you still have 31 days to perfect that title for that consumer from the date of purchase.
Okay. So we've got another question. So Lacey indicated that they took a pull-behind trailer on a trade-in that was previously owned in Kentucky, which does not require titling trailers. How do we go about getting a title for this trailer if sold to a consumer in Indiana?
And thank you for that, because Kentucky does not require titles for pull-behind trailers. So then you will need to apply for a court-ordered title here in the state of Indiana. Of course, you want to give your bill of sale. You want to reach out to the clerk of the court in your area, ask how you get your name on the document, any additional documentation that they might require, and that's what you'll need to do to obtain an Indiana title.
Okay. And then Robert's Auto, he wanted some clarification on that bill of sale, Sherry. He's asking, is the bill of sale for where we obtain the vehicle, or do we provide the bill of sale for the purchaser?
You need to have in your deal jacket not only where you obtain the vehicle, but also the bill of sale for the purchaser. So if you bought the vehicle at the auction, you're going to have the auction slip. If the vehicle was a trade-in, then you probably would have access to the file for the person who traded the vehicle in. So again, it's a paper trail. So if he bought the vehicle as a wholesale from another dealer to dealer, then he's going to have a purchase order from that dealer.
Okay. So, all right, we've got another question coming in. So Kaylin is asking regarding a bill of sale. We often sell multiple trailers at a time in one single sales transaction. Do we need to have a bill of sale for each individual trailer, or can we list the VINs on an addendum and write see addendum A in the VIN section on the bill of sale form?
I would say if you sell multiple trailers, then you can list each vehicle on your bill of sale, and as she suggested, the addendum. As long as the consumer is comfortable with having it itemized out, maybe that consumer might want a separate bill of sale for each one of them. But listing on a bill of sale for multiples would be okay. Year, make, and VIN, and dollar amount.
Okay, lots of good questions coming in. So far they've all been, via chat. So is anyone brave enough to come off of mute and ask a question of Sherry?
I would come off mute, provided that you can actually hear me speaking.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. So, question about dating forms. I know that it was mentioned earlier that in the example given was for RV dealers. We kind of fall into the same thing with trailers, that we have customers order several months in advance. And so that date of sale for printing interim plates would be when the customer takes possession. And that is good to know. But my question is regarding how we fill out all of these state required forms and tax forms. Do they need to be dated that same date that they take possession of it, or does it need to be dated the day that we all fill them out and sign those? Or does it matter?
Wow. As far as we're concerned, the bill of sale would be dated the date they take possession. As far as revenue, you might want to reach out to revenue of what date they would like to have on the ST-108 or the ST-108E. Because if you are special ordering a vehicle, all you're doing is doing an order for that consumer. Because you're running the risk, once that vehicle comes in, that consumer may not even come back and finalize the bill of sale, right? So when they come back to finalize the bill of sale and complete full payments, that's your date of purchase.
Got it. Thank you very much. And then if we do have time, I do have a couple quick questions, if that's all right.
Sure.
All right. So regarding the finance contract requirements and the deal jackets, I received a couple different answers. I'm hoping you can give me some clarification. We do not do any in-house financing ourselves. Our customers secure financing before they come to us. So they have their own private party funding. And in those cases, I would assume, which I know is dangerous, that we do not need to have any sort of financial contract in our deal jackets if it's completely third party and not related to our dealership operations at all. Is that correct?
Well, I have ran into situations like this with other dealers, and words of wisdom, if you are using a third party to perfect your titles, and whether that consumer is in state or out of state, your title work could be kicked back to you because that state is requiring the finance contract. So I would say I would actually reach out to that lien holder and obtain a copy of that finance contract just to be on the safe side.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to actual title work, is it permissible, as we've been kicking back and forth some ideas on how to do things, we have two different locations, we're the same company, but is it permissible for a dealership to have a corporate location do the title work, or does the dealership need to have the titles on hand for equipment that they sell at their location, if that makes sense?
Yes, it does. And it's not uncommon for the corporate office to hold the titles or even perfect the title work for the dealer. And a good example of that might be Lowe's or Stock and Field. Those types of businesses, the corporation normally does all the paperwork and holds the title for them.
Okay, great questions. You
Yeah,
have additional questions?
asking.
How about
I was
anybody?
really worried we wouldn't have enough questions, but we're doing great.
Yeah. Thank you. So we had another one come in via chat while we were talking. So is there anything we can do for a customer that we are not, where they're not able to get the title in 45 days? This was asked by Amanda.
Well, Amanda, here's what can happen. One or two things. You as a dealer can inform the consumer that you will give them a vehicle out of your inventory to drive on a dealer plate for 10 days. Now you're going to want them to bring the vehicle to you that you sold to them that you're not able to obtain the title. The other thing that you can do, and I strongly recommend, it's better for everybody involved, is have the consumer file a complaint with our division. That way we can help them with a paper plate and also work with you on obtaining a title for the consumer. I know it sounds really, a lot of dealers do not want complaints filed against them. They think it's a black mark against their business, but really it's not. If you can show us that you are working to obtain the title, we would prefer that they file a complaint and let us help them get a paper plate instead of you using a vehicle out of your inventory and one of your dealer plates. It's your choice.
All right, so that was all of the questions in the chat. So is there anybody else that would like to come off mute and ask a question or gain clarity and maybe if you chatted a question and how to follow up. Okay, no immediate questions. So, Sherry, do you have any, any additional like words of wisdom or maybe common questions that you've had asked in previous presentations that you'd want to share?
Well, I'd like to add some suggestions. With the plates on demand, the dealers allocated out so many plates. And the plates on demand is really great because it notifies you how many you've purchased, how many you still have available, and how many you have used. Words of wisdom, do not let that get down to less than 10 paper plates and then send a request into the dealership on 4:30 Friday afternoon, send that request into the division wanting paper plates because, oh my gosh, it is Saturday and we're down to 5 paper plates. Monitor that closely, whether you as the owner monitor it or your controller or your finance person, somebody keep track of that because again, 4:30 in the afternoon on Friday, we're no longer there, or on Saturday, there's nobody there. So please pay close attention. One of the other things I'd like to recommend, if you have, when you get your dealer plates in and your registrations, make copies of that registration and put it in a safe place. Because if you lose that dealer plate, you want to report that stolen to law enforcement because you want a replacement plate. Well, the officer probably won't fill out that lost plate affidavit if you cannot provide proof that you are the owner of that plate. And presenting the copy of the registration that is current, the officer will probably use that to fill out the form and just be happy as can be.
Okay. So we had a couple of questions come in while you were talking, Sherry. So Roberts Auto asked, where do they find the proper bill of sale that they need to include in the deal jacket?
Okay, you can create your own. There's lots of websites that you can go on and create your own bill of sale. But remember, you want to have on there the dealership's name, address, city and state, contact information. You want to have the consumer's name, address, city and state, and phone number, possibly email address. You will want to list out the year, make, and VIN of the vehicle. You will want to be able to list the selling price, the sales tax collected, any trade-in value that was applied, any down payments that was applied. You'll want a signature line not only for you, but also for the consumer. So the one that's on the BMV website, that is an individual to individual bill of sale. And if you look at that bill of sale, you'll see none of this information is listed. And that would be considered a failure to produce records. Because if we do an audit and we want to reach out to that consumer, we need to have that information to contact that consumer to ask maybe some additional questions about their purchasing of the vehicle.
Okay, thanks for the clarity, Sherry. 2 more questions came in. So Tina asked another question, and if she's not sure if this would be something you would know or she'd need to ask an insurance company, but if they do issue a loaner car with a dealer plate, should they make sure the customer has insurance, before they let them leave the lot with that loaner car?
Tina, you probably want to reach out to your insurance company to get that clarification. That's a great question, but I would reach out to the insurance company that you have.
Okay. And Liz asked a question. So is there any way to get a copy of a lost dealer plate registration?
You have on your dashboard, you can go in and do a spreadsheet of the what plates you have. Then you can send an email over to the division requesting a duplicate registration.
Okay. So Kaylin was asking for some clarity or sharing some clarity. So we are not required to use Indiana Bill of Sale form 44237, and we can utilize our own version of a bill of sale and question mark. So I guess he's asking, do they have to use 44237 or can they utilize their own?
You can create your own, just as long as it has the additional documentation that is required. A lot of dealers go online and create their own specific bill of sale. They want their logo on it.
Okay. Lots of good questions coming in. We still do have a few minutes. Does anybody else have a question they want to chat or come off mute and ask?
Sure, just to add to that state form 44237 from the BMV, that bill of sale is mainly used for a private individual. That bill of sale does not show an itemized vehicle price and sales tax collected. So that form is not recommended for the dealers to use at all.
Thank you for clarifying that, Christy. Anybody else? So we got another question that just came in, Sherry. So Amanda asked, can you clear up the new information on the one and the same document?
Okay, that is from the Indiana BMV. A letter was sent out requesting the dealers to use the one and the same differently. We do have the letter on our website, so you can go on our website and review what the BMV has requested that you do. If you have any additional concerns about that, I would recommend you reach out to the Indiana BMV, because remember, we are not the titling processors. The Indiana BMV is.
Okay. Anybody else with additional questions, either chat or come off mute? And then if not, Sherry, did you have any additional words of wisdom?
Well, what I would say is, if you have questions or concerns, please reach out to the examiner in your area. Sometimes just a heads up to the examiner, or even bounce a thought off the examiner, get some advice there. We can head off a lot of issues that might arise and help you out. We're not here to put everybody out of business. We're here to help you.
Great. And thank you for that, Sherry. There was another link placed in the chat of a good contact email for the BMV. So if you have questions that you're not able to get answered today that are BMV related, please refer to that email that just got chatted. That's going to be very helpful. So thank you for sharing that. And then Lacey wanted to share with everybody that she would recommend, if you're using your own bill of sale, to have a lawyer or legal person double check it to verify that your disclosures and everything are acceptable. So thanks for sharing, Lacey.
Thank you, Lacey. That's a wonderful idea.
Anything else? Looks like we're going to start wrapping up then for the Secretary of State's presentation. So Sherry, I wanted to thank you for presenting all that great information and for answering all these questions. And with that, we will transition over to Nancy Tyree with the Department of Revenue, and she will give her presentation.
Hey there, can you hear and see me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. All right, let me take just a moment and I will share my screen so that you can see the presentation. And since it took a little while for it to show up for our last presenter, I'm going to guess it will do the same thing now. So I can see the presentation, but please let me know. Can you see it?
We can see it.
Oh, great. Okay. And just to be clear, I have my presenter view up so I can see the notes, but If you are able to see that, that would probably be a problem because the screen is going to be very small for you with the actual slides. So can you just see the slides, or are you able to see my notes as well?
Just your slides.
Wonderful. Okay. So please let me know at any time if you run into tech issues, need me to repeat anything, happy to do that. But assuming that we're good to go, I'm going to just go ahead and jump in. So hello, everybody. My name is Nancy Tyree. I'm the Business Outreach and Education Manager with the Indiana Department of Revenue. I also have two guests that are going to be joining me today also from the Department of Revenue. They are the subject matter experts, so they will be especially useful helping to answer your questions. I'm not sure if they've logged on yet, but if they haven't, they will be doing it just in a moment. That's Colin Davis, the Director of Tax Guidance in our Policy Department, and Debbie Scott, the Revenue Tax Auditor out of our Evansville District Office. So please feel free to type questions at any time during the event. Debbie and Colin may, oh, hey there. You can turn your video off if you'd like. That was Debbie, so we got one of them here. Anyway, please feel free to type questions in the chat as we go. Debbie and Colin may be able to answer them in the moment through chat, or we may save them to the end, whatever works best. Great. So everything we're going to be talking about with you today is accurate to the best of our abilities, but please do know that sometimes tax laws change. If that happens, we want to make sure that you know how to stay up to date on those laws that may change. So we're going to give you at the end of the presentation some of the best ways to find updated information on our website and stay up to date in general. So that. So today we're going to be talking about registering, filing, paying different types of taxes that will be relevant to you, and a few other useful pieces of information and resources that'll help you when you are dealing with the Indiana Department of Revenue, also known as DOR. We love an acronym here at DOR. There we go. So, right off the bat, I wanted to make sure that you were aware of something that is kind of new for us. When you remit sales tax to Indiana, you need to do it electronically, usually. That isn't new. That rule has been in place for a while. What is new is where you can go to do that. We had an older e-portal that was available for businesses to use to remit their sales and withholding tax and other business taxes. And it was pretty good, but we have begun a huge modernization project in our department that it has allowed us to launch a new e-portal with expanded functionality. So that e-portal is called InTime. It's very customer friendly, it's convenient. It's one system that allows you to report, remit, and stay up to date with all of your business taxes. So all of the tax types we'll be discussing with you today are available for you to file and pay on InTime. You need to remit or manage the tax accounts for your dealership and you do not have an InTime account, I would recommend setting one up. Now, that being said, you do not have to use InTime to remit your taxes to us. Some people prefer to use a third-party vendor, maybe something like ADP or QuickBooks. And a lot of businesses actually hire a tax professional to do that for them, maybe an accountant or a CPA or an enrolled agent, something like that. So you are always welcome to do that as well. But if you're managing this yourself, InTime is our recommendation. So for those of you who are going to be starting their own businesses and do not already have tax accounts set up, I wanted to just briefly mention how tax registration works. If you're going to be conducting taxable sales, and as a dealership, you will be doing that, you need to get something called a Registered Retail Merchant Certificate, also known as an RRMC. I believe that was talked about in the last presentation. So this is what allows you to conduct taxable sales in Indiana. And getting one is thankfully pretty easy. We recommend you use InBiz to do that. InBiz is a joint venture between DOOR, the Indiana Secretary of State's office, the Indiana Department of Workforce Development, and a couple of other state agencies have also joined in order to provide some services on InBiz. So what would be useful for you if you were setting up your business is that it is one place where you can go to get registered with all of those agencies at once. So when it comes to getting registered with the Department of Revenue, what you're doing is you are setting up your tax accounts. If you have employees, you may need to set up a withholding tax account. For all of you pretty much, if you are setting up your business on InBiz, you're going to need to register to collect and remit sales tax because we'll need to do that a lot with vehicles. So just be aware when you are setting up those tax accounts, it's usually a $25 registration fee to set up your sales tax account. And once you've submitted everything to us through InBiz, we'll get in contact with you, make sure that everything looks good, ask you for more information if we need it. And assuming that you have sent us everything you need, shortly after that, we will send you your registered retail merchant certificate. And those are, as I said, required for you to conduct taxable sales in Indiana. They do come up for renewal every 2 years. But the nice thing is that as long as you are in good standing with the Indiana Department of Revenue, meaning that you are filing and remitting your taxes when they are due every time, then you do not need to worry about doing anything. We will automatically renew it every 2 years. Now, if you have missing periods where you have not filed and or remitted taxes when you were supposed to, that can be an issue. If that happens, we will send you a notification to help you correct it. But if you do not correct it by the time that your next 2-year period is up, instead of automatically renewing, your RRMC can expire. And that would mean you would not be allowed to conduct taxable sales in Indiana, which would be a problem. So please do not let it get to that point. That is my sermon on making sure your RRMCs stay up to date and valid. So now let's get into a couple of more useful, interesting, good things for you to know about sales tax. We're going to highlight some common concerns that should impact you. And also, I wanted to make you aware as we go through this presentation, I will occasionally mention something called an information bulletin. So in the updated email that Luke sent to you, the updated invitation, he included the slides for this presentation. He also included a PDF from us that has on it listed all of the sales tax informational bulletins that we reference during this presentation, as well as a couple more that maybe we don't reference but are still useful for you to have. So at any point, if I mention one of those bulletins and you think, what was that? Go back to that PDF and that will help you find them on our website so you can read more about the issues that we're talking about today. So let's start off with some basic information. Everything we're going to cover in the first couple of slides is found in more detail in Information Bulletin number 28S. So if you are an Indiana dealer, you need to collect Indiana sales tax when you sell a vehicle. So Indiana sales tax is 7%. And when you do that, you're going to need to provide the purchaser a completed form ST-108. That shows the BMV when the customer goes and registers their vehicle. It shows the BMV that they paid sales tax to the dealership at the time of purchase. That is what makes them able to not have to pay sales tax again at the BMV. If you, as the dealership or seller, don't sign this, The BMV will not accept it as proof that sales tax was collected, so that's pretty important. In addition to giving a copy of this to the seller, you should also keep a copy of it yourself for your own records. When we conduct audits, tax audits on dealerships and businesses, we're going to want to look at those forms to make sure that you have been collecting and remitting the right tax at the right time. So it's in your best interest to keep records of them on hand. The second point on this slide is something that can get a little bit confusing, but don't worry, we're going to talk about it in a lot of depth more later on. I will give you the highlight though right now. When you are selling a vehicle to a customer, you are collecting Indiana sales tax. That applies even if you're selling to a customer who's going to license and title that vehicle in another state. So if you do that, you'll be collecting sales tax at that state's rate, most likely, but you will not remit that tax to that destination state. You'll still remit it to the Indiana Department of Revenue. The reason for that is the law gives some allowances for when you are selling a vehicle to somebody who's going to license and title it out of state. But the law considers those to be Indiana transactions, meaning that it is considered Indiana sales tax, even if it's collected at a different rate, and you need to remit it to the Indiana Department of Revenue. So, like I said, we'll talk about that more in a little bit, but that is your preview for now. All right, so we've talked about collecting sales tax. Now, the only reason you wouldn't collect sales tax from a customer is if that purchaser claims an exemption. Usually, you're going to know that that is happening because the customer will give you Form ST-108E. It might look like Form ST-108, which we talked about earlier, but that E is important. It stands for exemption. So this form is going to be provided to you by the customer. It needs to be signed by them. And again, one copy stays with the customer to prove that it was an exempt purchase and they didn't have to pay sales tax. And one copy stays with you for your records, again, to prove that you did the right thing. Some of the most common reasons that you're going to potentially get this form from a customer is if the vehicle is going to be used directly in public transportation, if it is being purchased by and used for a government entity, like a sheriff's department, or if it's going to be purchased by and used for a nonprofit. In all of those cases, the purchaser would give you Form ST-108E, and they would cite the reason for the exemption on that form. Now, the ST-108E is the main form you're going to see when it comes to exemptions, but you may get other forms too. For example, you might get something called the ST-105D. That's used to document when one dealer is buying a vehicle from another dealer in order to resell it. So as dealers, you might get that form from someone buying from you, or you might actually use it yourself if you want to buy from another dealer and sell that vehicle on your lot. And the reason you can do that is because purchasing something as inventory, that is another common type of exemption. The reason for that is because we generally only want to collect sales tax on an item one time when it is sold to the end user. So if you purchase something as inventory, you're ensuring that you're going to sell that item to a customer later on, and you will collect sales tax at that time and remit it to us then. That's why you don't have to pay sales tax when you purchase it. And that's why it gets to be exempt. So just be aware, Form ST-105D, that might come up for you as well. Okay, now let's focus on those out-of-state rules that I talked about earlier. As I said before, if a vehicle is being moved or titled to another state shortly after the customer purchases it from you, you need to look at the sales tax rate for that destination state. You're still going to collect Indiana sales tax, and you will remit it to the Indiana Department of Revenue. But instead of collecting it at Indiana's 7% rate, you will likely be collecting it at the other state's rate. If you want more information about how this works, Sales Tax Bulletin number 84 is a really great resource. So more information about this. If you're collecting at another state's rate, be aware you're only required to collect sales tax up to 7%, which is Indiana's rate. So if the destination state, the one that the customer is going to license and title their vehicle in, if that state's rate was 6%, that is the amount that you would collect, 6%. But if the other state had a rate of 8%, you actually don't have to collect 8%. The maximum is 7%, Indiana's rate. So you get to ignore that additional 1% if you encounter that. The reason we do this is it allows dealers on or near state borders to be competitive, because the states bordering Indiana generally have lower sales tax rates. So we want you, when you're selling to customers in another state, to be able to be competitive and collect at that lower sales tax rate. Do keep in mind, the rate charged only includes the state sales tax rate. It does not include local or other jurisdictional rates. And we also don't pay attention to that state's exemptions, trade-in caps, or caps on tax. So I'm going to give you some examples. If a purchaser is from another state with an exemption for military personnel, for example, that exemption would not apply if they're buying from you, because that transaction is taking place in Indiana, and Indiana doesn't have that exemption. So if you run into a customer asking about that, let them know about that. Another thing that can come up, in Ohio, for example, they have a base sales tax rate for the state, and then each county in Ohio can have an additional county sales tax rate. So if you are selling to a customer who's going to plate their vehicle in Ohio, you only take into account the base state sales tax rate, which I believe, let me check, is 5.75%. You don't need to worry about what county they're going to and what county rates there might be. So if you're selling to a customer in another state and they need to pay any additional fees when they go and register their vehicle, it is often because there is an additional county sales tax or a property tax or a wheel tax or something like this. You don't have to take that into consideration when you're determining what you collect from that customer and remit to us. So just be aware of that. All right. All state sales tax that you are collecting at whatever rate needs to be remitted to the Indiana Department of Revenue. You remit it to us on Form ST-103 CAR, but you probably will not physically file that form. It is actually available electronically on InTime. So as long as you are electronically filing when you remit your tax, you'll get it to us the right way. Indiana dealers and out-of-state customers also need to complete something called Form ST-108NR. So the NR stands for non-resident. So this form validates that the vehicle is going to be moved outside of Indiana within 30 days and registered in the customer's state. You keep a copy of this for your records, and the buyer keeps a copy as evidence that sales tax was properly collected. I hope this sounds very repetitive to you. It is the case for most forms. This is another important form that our auditors will want to see records of if you're ever audited, so you keep that in mind. Also, I wanted to make sure you're aware, most states, they provide a credit for customers who pay sales tax to another state. So when you get a customer who's buying from a state outside of Indiana, they are paying you Indiana sales tax, and their destination state is going to give them a credit to make up for that. But a few states don't provide that credit. And if you sell to customers from Mississippi, Arkansas, or West Virginia, the customer will be charged tax twice. The reason for that is because Indiana and those 3 states, Mississippi, Arkansas, and West Virginia, they have the legal requirement to impose a tax on the transaction and a tax on the registration. This is one of those things that has only come up more recently because more people are conducting sales online or virtually. Normally, Indiana dealers don't sell cars to those states very often, but you're doing it more, so we've encountered it and we wanted to let you know about it. So let's dive into warranties just a little bit. Sales tax when it comes to warranties can get a little sticky, so we wanted to break it down for you. When we're talking about original manufacturer warranties and dealer warranties that are not offered as an option when the product is sold, those are considered part of the selling price of the product. They guarantee the condition of a product, and they say that maintenance and replacement parts will be provided at no charge or at a flat rate. So technically, because it's part of the selling price of the product, sales tax is already on that. Now, any subsequent payments that are made by the purchaser, like deductibles or other fees, those would be subject to sales tax. But any parts that are transferred to a buyer under the terms of an original warranty are not subject to sales tax. That's because those parts or property, those were considered to have been sold with the product as part of the original retail transaction on which the sales tax was collected. So that means those parts are exempt. But in order to prove that they're exempt, you need to be able to tie them back to the original warranty. So always look at the warranty, look at the language that's used, and make your assessment based on that. You want more information? Information bulletin number 2 gets into warranties a little bit more. All right, so digging into this more. For example, some warranties explicitly state that a replacement vehicle will be provided while warranty work is being performed. If that's the case, that rental transaction of that vehicle, that's exempt from sales or use tax because the rental transaction is considered part of the original warranty. Now, if the warranty does not explicitly provide for a replacement vehicle, then any provided vehicle would be subject to sales and use tax. One additional thing to know about this, the fee charged for a rental vehicle that is provided under warranty work, that's exempt from sales tax, but it's not exempt from something called the auto rental excise tax. We're going to talk about that more later. And just to add another complication to this, it is exempt from the Marion County supplemental auto rental excise tax. That is something that only applies in Marion County. So if you're a dealer located there, you might have to deal with this. And if not, just ignore it. Let us know if you have questions about that. We're happy to tell you more. So let's talk about leased vehicles now. Information on leased vehicles you can find in Sales Tax Information Bulletin number 28L. So leases are different from regular sales in a couple of ways. Basically, vehicle leases are subject to sales and use tax unless you provide an exemption. So that's the same as with sales. But this next part is where it gets different. The taxability of a lease is not based on the residency of the lessee, the customer. It's based on the vehicle or trailer's state of primary property location. Now that is usually spelled out in the lease agreement, so at least it's easy to determine that. As an Indiana dealer, If the lessee is going to maintain or garage the vehicle in another state, that is the state that's going to get the tax most likely. So in this case, you'll collect the sales tax up front during the transaction, and then you'll send it to the leasing agency, and they will get it to the correct state, as well as collect additional payments and tax after that. Now, if you are leasing to a customer who's going to garage and maintain the vehicle in Indiana, which is probably the more common thing you're going to see, in that case, you would collect and send that sales tax to us because you're already registered to do so. So it's just easier that way. That can sound a little complicated. Why are the rules like that? It's because when we're dealing with leases, the auto dealer acts as an agent for the lessor. That's the leasing company or the financial institution. And you do that in order to prepare and execute a lease arrangement between the lessee, the customer, and the lessor. So the fact that there's three parties there makes the rules a little tricky. Now, there are two types of leases I wanted to make sure you know about, those with monthly payments and those without. For leases with monthly payments, or any kind of periodic lease payments, and that can include down payments, manufacturer's rebates, etc. Those are supposed to be sourced to the primary property location of the motor vehicle or trailer, where it's garaged, what I just talked about in the last slide. And in most cases, that is the home state address of the lessee shown on their lease agreement. But for leases that do not require those periodic payments, the payment is actually different. It is sourced like a retail sale. So that means the entire amount received upon the lease is subject to Indiana sales tax, provided that the lessee is taking physical possession and control of the leased vehicle in Indiana. And what's interesting about that is true regardless of the state of residence of the lessee or the location where the vehicle is going to be primarily located or registered or licensed or whatever. When we're dealing with leases without periodic payments, the only thing that matters is that the customer is taking possession within Indiana. It doesn't matter where they're going, where they're maintaining it, where they're licensing the vehicle. If they're taking possession of it in Indiana, you can just treat it the same way you would an Indiana sale that's going to be licensed in Indiana, okay? And again, just to provide a little more context for why this kind of thing is happening, when a vehicle is leased, there are two separate but related transactions. The dealer is selling the vehicle to a leasing or finance company, and at the same time, they're originating a lease arrangement between the lessor and the lessee. So for those leases without periodic payments, as dealers, your role is to collect the sales tax up front, document it, and remit it to DOOR. Exemptions are also important for leased vehicles. If the customer claims an exemption and tax is not collected, the ST-108E needs to be completed. The lessor, so that leasing company, they need to retain a completed exemption certificate in the lessor's records to document the exempted lease. And the customer should also keep a copy. And frankly, you might want to keep a copy too, just to be safe, as is the theme throughout the session. Okay, let's talk about merchandise and parts, because you might be dealing with things that are not strictly vehicles, but rather other personal property. So right off the bat, merchandise and parts are subject to sales tax unless there is a qualified exemption. And remember, you need to retain a copy of the exemption certificate if there is. Also, while we've been talking this whole time about the ST-108E, how that's the most common form you're going to get to show an exemption, That form is specifically supposed to be used when you're purchasing a vehicle. If someone is purchasing parts or merchandise that they need to show as being exempt, they need to use a different form. They're going to use the general exemption form, which is called ST-105. So for parts and merchandise, the exemption form that comes into play is the ST-105. Sometimes customers will use this for a blanket exemption, meaning that they can come in and purchase parts or anything like that multiple times over the course of months or years, and use the same form each time. And they may not even give that form to you subsequent times when they come in. They'll inform you that they have the form on file, and you should have it on file, so you should be able to pull it up. So sometimes people ask us, how long should I keep that form on file? Here's what the law says. The law says an exemption certificate is good for the life of the business, and that the information on the form must be accurate in order to be valid. So theoretically, you could keep a form on hand indefinitely, and until the business goes under, it's good. But if a business ever changes its name or something like that, that changes the information on that exemption certificate and they don't give you an updated one, that means the certificate you have on file is no longer valid. So it is in your best interest to check those exemption certificates every so often. Make sure the information is accurate when a customer asks to use one again. And if it is not, ask them to update it. Finally, I wanted to mention sublet repairs. So the way that these work is that generally the entire amount is subject to tax unless it is itemized on the service invoice. So the reason for that is if something is not itemized, we treat it as a bundled transaction. So if you're dealing with sublet charges like towing or radiator repair, and you're not itemizing them on the invoice, you have to charge sales tax on everything. But if you are itemizing the things on the invoice, those towing or radiator repair charges, those are services, not tangible personal property. And in the state of Indiana, services do not need to be taxed. So here's the takeaway. If you itemize your invoice, you don't have to tax services. But if you do not itemize your invoice, we are forced to treat the whole invoice as a bundled transaction and apply sales tax to every item on it. Let's also talk about the rules for document fees versus convenience fees. So a document fee is a fee that dealers sometimes charge when they're preparing documents for the customer, so that the customer can take that packet of information to the BMV and have everything ready to go when they get there. It is fine for you to do that, and there's nothing wrong with charging that fee, but do be aware that fee is subject to tax. Now, a convenience fee is different. Convenience fees correlate to the registration requirements of the BMV. So you aren't just preparing the documents, you're also taking them to the BMV and filing them yourself on behalf of the customer. If you do that, you can charge up to 150% of the BMV fee without collecting sales tax. Anything that you charge over that amount, over 150% of the BMV fee, you would need to charge sales tax on that. So just make sure you know the difference between these two things and that you are taxing them appropriately. Also, there are different rules about taxability when it comes to the trade-in allowance. So if the trade-in allowance is relating to a non-like kind exchange, trading in a motor vehicle for a motorcycle, for example, or something like that, a boat for a vehicle, those are subject to sales tax. only a trade-in allowance for a like-kind exchange, a boat for a boat, a car for a car, etc., would be exempt from sales tax. Other rules you need to meet for the allowance to be exempt from sales tax. 1, the vehicle the customer is exchanging must be owned and titled in the name of the customer. So if the vehicle in question was in the customer's parents' name or in a living trust, that could cause an issue. Number 2, the purchase of the used vehicle by the dealership needs to be part of the same transaction as the sale of the new vehicle. A used vehicle purchased by the dealership is not a credit that can be applied to the purchase of a new vehicle later. That doesn't work if there are 2 separate transactions on 2 separate dates. This has come up a lot recently because there's, a shortage of new vehicles and a high demand for used vehicles. So someone might be trying to trade in a vehicle before they're going to get their new vehicle. They can do that, but just be aware that trade-in allowance is going to be subject to tax if it's 2 separate transactions. So those were our sales tax issues. Let's shift to use tax. We think of use tax as kind of a mirror to sales tax. It is a tax on any item used, stored, or consumed in Indiana that comes into play if sales tax isn't collected at the time of purchase and no other valid exemption applies. I'm going to give you several examples of when that might happen on the next 2 slides. I also wanted to mention 2 things here. One time you might need to remit use tax is if you buy a car for inventory intending to sell it on your lot, because if you do that, you can buy it exempt. Remember, inventory can be exempt. But the reason you're able to do that is because you're going to resell it. You don't need to pay sales tax when you buy it because you're going to collect it from the customer you sell to. Now, if for some reason you take that vehicle out of inventory, maybe you decide to use it for personal use, that's fine, you can do that. But you are now in a situation where you have become the end user and you didn't pay sales tax when you bought that vehicle. So you need to make that right. The way you do that is you remit 7% use tax to DOOR. And the use tax is on the cost, not the markup. So you would pay 7% of what you paid for the car when you bought it, not 7% of what you would have sold the vehicle for. Another time you can see it happen is if you buy something and you should have been charged sales tax, but you weren't. You look at the invoice and you see you are not charged 7% Indiana sales tax. That happens sometimes with catalog or out-of-state sales. If that is the case, that is a good hint to you to know no other exemption has come into play. You should have been charged sales tax, but you weren't. That lets you know you need to remit 7% use tax to us. All right, so here are some common items that are subject to use tax for auto dealers. The oil and filters from free oil changes. If you're giving those items away free from your inventory, you need to pay use tax on the cost of those items. You don't need to pay it on the retail price, like I said earlier, the cost of those items. Any dealer-owned vehicle repairs. So that's a vehicle that's on your asset list and it's depreciated. It's your vehicle, not an inventory. So you need to pay use tax on that. Also, fuel purchased to be used in dealer-owned vehicles, demos, courtesy vehicles, or even any new and used vehicles to be sold. It's also subject to use tax. And then consumable supplies, things like masking paper or tape or oil rags or cleaning supplies. Anything you keep and supply that does not end up going to an end customer, if you don't pay sales tax on those items when you buy them, you need to remit use tax to us for the cost of it. Also, things like promotional items, mailers or balloons or t-shirts with your dealership name on it, those are taxable. So they are subject to use tax if you didn't pay sales tax when you bought them. Optional warranty parts, because the customer didn't pay tax on those originally, right? And then the last things on this slide are software licensing fees and data-based fees. We do have an exception to that though. If it is a fee for something like Carfax or credit reports or electronic sales leads or mailing lists, those aren't taxable. So you don't have to pay sales tax on those. You don't have to pay use tax on those. The reason why that's the case is because those things, Carfax or mailing lists, they aren't technically considered tangible personal property. They're considered information. So Indiana does not consider them to be taxable. So you wouldn't have to worry about sales or use tax for those. I think that that distinction can be kind of tricky. So if you want to know more about what is and isn't taxable when it comes to software licensing and data, I would recommend checking out Sales Tax Information Bulletins number 2 and number 8. They have a lot of good information. Also, demonstrator vehicles. Okay, a demonstrator vehicle is going to have a lot of rules associated with it in order for you to not have to pay sales or use tax. One, it needs to be provided to a full-time salesperson in order to be exempt. So that can't include family members, part-time salespeople, the manager of the dealership, anything like that. If it is, it's going to be subject to use tax. Additionally, that full-time salesperson can only use the vehicle for qualified automobile demonstration use. That means the vehicle has to be in the inventory of the dealership. It has to be available for test drives during normal business hours. The person can't store physical possessions in it. It can only be driven within the dealer's sales area, and it can't be used for personal trips. So if you don't meet any of those conditions, you need to remit use tax on the vehicle. And then I wanted to also share a few additional taxes and fees that might come into play, some of the rules for these. In Indiana, we impose a 25-cent fee on each new tire sold. This mostly applies to cars and RVs and trailers, but it can also apply to farm tractors, semi-trailers, or even garden tractors, as long as they have 25 horsepower or more. This fee is imposed on each new tire mounted on a vehicle at the time the vehicle is sold. It also includes the spare tire. And a new tire means a tire that has never been mounted on the wheel of a vehicle. Also, while nonprofits and government entities can claim exemptions, meaning that they are free from having to pay sales tax, they cannot claim an exemption for this tax. So if you get an exemption certificate from someone, you don't have to charge them sales tax on the vehicle, but you do have to charge the 25-cent per tire fee. There's a couple of other ways that tires can actually be exempt. The fee is not imposed on tires used on 25 horsepower or less motors. New tires mounted on non-self-propelled vehicles for personal use, like boat trailers or campers, or tires purchased for resale without being mounted on the motor vehicle. So this doesn't apply to all tires across the board. Do be aware of which ones it does apply to. We also have something called the motor vehicle rental excise tax in Indiana. So this is for rentals of passenger motor vehicles for short terms, less than 30 days. It is a 4% tax, and like with the tire fee that we just talked about, nonprofits and government entities are not exempt from this tax. Also, counties can add a supplemental auto rental excise tax. I believe that Marion County is the only one that has one right now. So their total rate is 6%. For every other dealership located in another county in Indiana, it's a 4% rate. And then I wanted to, before we wrap up this presentation, spend a little bit of time talking about billing, payment collection, our audit process, other processes that you might enter into over the course of your business. I just want to make sure that you are able to navigate these as successfully as possible. So if you ever enter our collections process, we are going to send you a lot of different letters. So always make sure you are opening and replying to your mail. Here's a simple rundown of the process. If for whatever reason you fail to file your taxes in a given period when they are, we're going to send you a letter notifying you that, hey, after receiving that letter, we're going to eventually send something called a notice of proposed assessment. And in that, we will say, here's what we think you owe. It's an estimated amount. You need to either pay or protest that amount within 60 days of getting that letter. If you do not do anything within 60 days, we will send a demand for payment. At that point, you do not have any right to appeal. You have to either pay it or start setting up and making payments on a payment plan. You only have 20 days to do that. You still do not make any moves before then, a tax warrant will kick in. So, as you can probably tell from that, the farther you get into the collections process, the later stage that you're in, kind of the worse it gets, right? Here are a couple of added things that can happen in those later stages of the collections process. If you fail to report or pay your taxes, it can impact your credit score. We mentioned that sheriff's tax warrant. You could be referred to by a collection agency. And it can also increase liability from penalties and interest. So the longer it goes, the more you will owe. Also, as I said before, if you let it go too long and your RRMC is up for renewal, it will expire. So that would be a problem. We really recommend you don't let it get to those stages. If you enter into the collections process, try to respond to us and remedy the situation as early as possible. So for example, after we send you an estimate amount in a notice of proposed assessment, you can appeal. And that's something that a lot of people will want to do. So if you are ever in that situation and you want to appeal an estimated bill, you have that 60-day period to start that process. If you ever want to know more about appeals, we have a guide on our website that has been made to help make sure customers know what they're supposed to do and get the appeals started the right way. So you can find our administrative protest guide online that shows you what you need to include in the letter, where you send it, what the steps of the appeals process are, etc. You do not have to appeal, however, if the estimated bill amount looks correct to you and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to pay it, but you can't pay it all at once. We do offer payment plans. You can get those set up on InTime. And speaking of that, whether you are filing, remitting, paying, or making a payment plan, you are likely going to be doing that on InTime. As I said, every tax type that we have talked about today is available for you to manage your accounts, file and pay for them on InTime. So we do recommend setting up an account if you need to do that and you haven't got an account set up already. I also wanted to just briefly mention the audit process. So a lot of people, understandably, are a little frightened if they find out that they're being audited. We wanted to do some things to help you feel more comfortable if you are ever in that situation. One, we want to make sure you have all the information you need. So if you are ever audited, I would recommend checking out our audit manual, which is available on our website and I've linked to in this slide. It has a lot of great information. It has information about what kind of forms you may be asked to provide, what the steps of the audit process are, what you as a customer can expect, what we are legally required to do. It's just a good way to get more familiar with the process. If you ever are audited, you'll be contacted by an auditor to schedule an appointment at a time that works for you and the auditor. Right now, audits are being conducted virtually, and I believe there are some that are in person if both parties are okay with that. That is something that we will continue to offer, I think, for as long as the pandemic exists. Audits usually don't take that long. 3 to 10 days is the average amount, but it does depend on how complete your records are. Please do know, just because you're getting audited, it also doesn't necessarily mean that you've done anything wrong. While many audits do end with the customer owing additional taxes, that's not the only outcome. Our auditors will often find that nothing wrong happened and nothing is owed as a result of the audit. Sometimes, in fact, they'll actually find that we owe a return to the customer who is being audited because they have remitted too much. That happens, okay? So the most important things for you to do are to keep good records and communicate openly with your auditor. That will ensure you get the best possible outcome for both of us. At the end of the audit process, the auditor will sit down and explain their findings with you. You can always have a professional there to advocate for you on behalf. Call that a power of attorney. They can represent you at that meeting or anytime throughout the audit process if you want. During that final meeting, we will also give you information about how to protest if you want. And like I said before, just remember, if you're keeping good records and you're communicating with us, that is half the battle in an audit. If you do that, I think it will go a lot more smoothly than you probably anticipate it would. So, all right, before we end for today, I wanted to give you a couple of resources. The presentation we've given is some solid basic information, but it is far from comprehensive. So I recommend using these resources we provide here to learn more and help answer any questions you might have beyond today. So here are a couple of pages on our website that I think are particularly useful. And I'm going to point out 3 in particular. The dealer information page is really great. It has a lot of stuff we've talked about in it today. I also discussed those other states and how they have different sales tax rates and rules. So we have a chart on that page that lists sales tax rates and rules for those other states. We recommend you use that to use that as the first thing you do to make sure that you're looking at the right rate for a destination state, and then verify that by going to that state's revenue agency website and making sure that it's true there too. They don't send us information to let us know if they've changed that. So we're pretty sure that is up to date, but it's in your best interest to check. Also, all of the informational bulletins that I've talked about today are available in that PDF that you've been given. If you want to explore even more informational bulletins, they are available on our website at that sales tax bulletin link. And if you have any questions down the line, please contact us. You can call us, you can make an appointment to visit one of our district offices. You can set up an InTime account and securely message us on InTime. So if you don't want to wait on the phone, that is a great alternative. Also, if you need to get updates in case anything changes down the line, here's how you can do that. You're going to go to our homepage. Somewhere just a little bit down on that page is a blue box that says subscribe to Door email updates. Click on that, enter in your information, and that will allow you to be updated in case anything we talk about today changes down the line. You can get updated whenever that auto dealer web page is updated. Whenever we send out a tax bulletin monthly newsletter for businesses and tax professionals, those are great things to get updated on. And that is it, I believe. So thank you so much for your time and attentiveness. We really appreciate being able to work with you at these kind of events. I am going to open the field for questions. I see that there have been several in the chat while I've been talking, so that's great. We're happy to answer more now.
Yeah. Lots of good questions, Nancy. We really appreciate it. But yeah, it was a very active chat while you were talking. So I wasn't sure if we wanted to rehash all of those, or if we should just start fresh on maybe some of the questions that weren't answered. Do we feel like like Sean and Amanda asked a couple questions? I believe those were answered. And then Amanda asked another one and said, you know, do we fill out $0 in tax anywhere, like what needs to be done in, I believe that's, is that Illinois? Can you guys see that?
Yes, I believe it does say Illinois. I'm not quite sure exactly what she's asking there, a zero tax return because there were zero sales. I guess I need clarification on that.
Amanda, what does that mean exactly? If you, I don't know if you wanted to come off mute, maybe if possible, and explain that.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I used to work for an Illinois dealership, and when we did wholesales or dealer trades, we had to go into the Illinois tax website and file taxes with a $0 balance for like the dealer exemptions. Is that something that we need to do in the state of Indiana?
And that would be yes, if you have sales in Indiana and you're registered with Indiana and you're selling exempt vehicles and you have an ST108E or an ST105D from dealer to dealer, then yes, you would have to file a zero tax return for each month if you're set up on a monthly basis or early filer. Every month that you have zero sales, that you had Indiana sales, you have to file a zero return, or we will bill you based on a best information available for not filing that return for that month. We're always going to look for a return for your filing frequency, whether it be monthly or quarterly. I don't know what you're registered for in Indiana. Does that answer your question?
I guess, no, I meant more sale to sale per vehicle. So every wholesale vehicle, do we need to go in and file every single day for that deal?
I not in Indiana.
Okay. But we do need to have the ST105D in every single deal bag in the chance of an audit?
Yes. Are you are an Indiana dealer?
Yes.
Yes. So I guess to clarify everything, yes, you would have to have an ST105D, or you'd have to have the ST108E, explaining why the why the sale was exempt, because under audit, we're going to be looking for those forms for verification that it was exempt. And yes, you have to file your sales tax return even with zero sales tax due.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, so we had another multi-part question just come in from Sean. So Sean was asking 3 questions in regards to the interstate commerce sales and dealer bulletin 28S, where a vehicle is delivered by the dealership to a customer out of state and sales tax is not collected. So his first question is, should we use an ST108NR, ST108E, or both?
Well, if they are delivering it out of state and the dealership has arranged for the shipment to go out of state and the customer did not take possession of the car in the state of Indiana, then that would be considered an interstate sale and there would not be any sales tax collected on that. They would not need an ST-108 NR or an ST. They would need an ST-108E only if they purchased it in Indiana and they're buying it exempt. Then they would need the ST-108E. But if it was an interstate commerce delivery where it was delivered to the customer outside the state of Indiana, that would be an interstate commerce sale and protected from sales tax under the Public Law 86-272. So that with that, if that's the case, then they would have to have in their dealer jacket how it was delivered, who delivered it, where it was delivered to, and proof of the customer was out of state. So there's several things they'd have to have in that dealer jacket.
That was, I think his third question is what is considered proof that the dealership delivered a vehicle out of state? And I think you just kind of referenced those items, correct?
Yes, they would definitely have to document how it was delivered, who the third party was that delivered it. They have to prove that the dealership made arrangements for that delivery, not the customer. And they would have to have the customer sign when they took delivery out of state and the address of where it was delivered to.
Okay.
Can
then,
anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Colin Davis. I just want to add on top of that regarding whether the ST-108E would ever be updated to include this as an exemption. This is not an exempt sale. This has to do with sourcing the sale to another state. So when the vehicle is delivered by the dealership to another state, it's not an Indiana transaction. It's a transaction of the state where it's being delivered to. So it's not an Indiana sale at all. It's not an exempt sale. So we can't really update the form to make it an exemption because it's not an exempt sale. It's just not an Indiana sale at all. And like we mentioned, all that documentation is necessary to substantiate and then an audit instead of getting the ST-108E or another exemption form.
Thank you, Colin. That very detailed information from both of you. And Sean, I believe that answered all three of the questions you asked. If you have any additional questions, Sean, please let us know.
I would just, want to clarify with it. We do roughly anywhere from 30 to 50 transactions for out-of-state customers on a monthly basis. Especially with COVID ramping up, that number just seems to increase more and more. We just want to make sure that we are documenting appropriately why sales tax wasn't collected in the transaction, both for the customer when they go to title a vehicle in their state, as well as for potential tax audits. So all we need is just a document reflecting the who, when, where the vehicle was delivered. That's the only thing that's needed to support not collecting taxes.
Yes. And you have to make sure you're not just delivering it across state lines. That is not considered an interstate delivery. I know down here in Evansville, we're right here on the Kentucky line, and some of the dealerships were delivering just right outside of Indiana, and that is not considered interstate commerce.
What would be a cutoff for something like that? For example, if we have a customer that is 4 or 5 states away and wants to meet halfway with the dealership, and we deliver the vehicle to the far border of Illinois, would that be considered, like, what's technically a cutoff and what's not?
Well, really, it comes down to whether you are delivering it for the point of avoiding collecting Indiana sales tax. So, I mean, if the customer actually lived across the border from Evansville and it was delivered to their home address, that's fine. But if you deliver it to a parking lot right across the state border, then that becomes a taxable situation because you're trying to avoid collecting Indiana sales tax. So, if you meet halfway, if they live 4 or 5 states away and you meet halfway, that's totally fine. It's really just about the you know, in the situation of going across the border into a parking lot, it's clear you're just the dealership might be doing that to avoid collecting Indiana sales tax. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. We definitely don't have situations like that, but we do have customers that live, you know, Kentucky, Illinois, Ohio, where we're delivering them. Some of them might be, you know, Cincinnati, which you would consider right across the border. So we just wouldn't want to get into a position where we're put in a pickle when we're upholding doing things the right way, but also could come across as potentially suspicious based upon where the customer might live.
Yeah. No, that's a great question.
And I might just add a little bit more to that as an auditor. What we would be looking for in that dealer jacket would be a copy of that customer's driver's license to see what address that he actually lives at. We're going to look to see where you delivered it to, because you're going to have the address where you met the customer. And then we're probably going to look to see if you got gas on the way, gas receipts or something to prove that you actually did deliver that car. I mean, as an auditor, we're going to kind of look at that a little bit in depth. And if you have all that documented, then we would say that was an interstate sale.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I'm going to jump in real quick on this because I've gotten guidance from IDOR on this exact situation Sean's been talking about. And the guidance that I've gotten with interstate commerce and them taking possession outside the state of Indiana, it would, as you said, not be an Indiana sale whatsoever. The guidance that I've gotten in the past has been that you would be required to have an ST-108 showing that it was exempt, just to document that why they didn't pay tax. But if I'm hearing you correctly now, you're saying that you would not need any Indiana tax forms if it was an interstate commerce sale that took place outside the state of Indiana. You just need to document, as Sean said, the where, why, how, and delivery and all that stuff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and just to add to that, what Colin said is we don't need an ST-108 because that's an exemption, and it's not an exempt sale. It's just an interstate commerce, and like he said, it's sourced to another state. I think, though, that you also have to keep in mind whenever you start delivering cars to other states that you could be opening yourself up to their sales tax rules, and you may have to register in those states.
That's a great point, Debbie. With the Wayfair decision, I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but the United States Supreme Court issued an opinion 3 summers ago that basically says that physical presence in a state is no longer the only factor in determining whether a seller has to register in that state to collect sales tax for that state. Now there's an economic nexus test that most states have. That the tests vary by state, but it's typically $100,000 in sales or 200 transactions or a different amount of transactions. So if you were to sell into Ohio, for instance, and you sold 5 vehicles at $20,000 each, then you might reach the threshold for Ohio, in which case then you are supposed to register as an Ohio merchant and start collecting Ohio sales taxes on those transactions which are sourced to Ohio. This wouldn't apply in situations where, you know, the Ohio resident is coming into Indiana and picking up the vehicle in Indiana, because those are Indiana transactions subject to Indiana sales tax. But if you are delivering vehicles into other states, you need to start monitoring how much sales you're making into each one of those states, because you could be subject to their requirements to start registering and collecting those taxes for them.
Does that also apply to cargo trailer dealers?
It's going to vary by state. Some states, because cargo trailers, you know, there's those reciprocal rules in most states saying that if you sell a cargo trailer in that state to, you know, it might be not subject to tax if regardless. So some states say you're supposed to track all of the sales into the states, including exempt sales. Some states say you're only supposed to track the taxable sales, so you wouldn't track exempt sales. So unfortunately, each state has slightly different rules, and it could vary by state.
All right, any more questions about this topic? Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead.
Okay, on the when the customer takes physical possession out of state, I think we've been talking about that. What we have is a manufacturer. They upfit a chassis. We're buying the chassis and the upfit, and we will go through a third party, a drive-away service, and act as the co-shipper on that, and it's delivered to, say, somebody, to the customer that is in Kentucky. That is exempt from Indiana sales tax. Is that correct?
It sounds like it. I wasn't sure I was following that completely, but it sounds like that should be exempt.
Okay, yeah, it's a truck chassis with that's upfitted with a say a crane on the chassis. We never touch it. It's shipped from, say, the manufacturer in Pennsylvania. We will contract with an outside hauler, a drive-away service, and act as co-shipper, and it goes direct from the factory to the customer in Kentucky. So
yes,
we see that as an exempt sale.
Yeah, right.
Collect. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Not an Indiana sale. Under the sourcing rules, it would be sourced to Kentucky as a Kentucky sale.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a couple of questions come in via chat. So Lacey asked regarding lease sales tax. Can you tell me how to figure the amount taxable? Is the trade equity taxable? Is the cap reduction taxable? She's aware that the physical cash down and manufacturer rebates are taxable.
I would refer her to look at Information Bulletin 28L. There are several examples on there, and I would be glad for her to email me and we can talk about that. Her and I can talk about that because it does, there's different examples there. If she looks at Information Bulletin number 28L and she still has questions, then please email me. I will put my email address in here so you have it, and we can talk about that.
Okay. All right, so Martha asked, just to clarify, if we sell a vehicle to a customer who lives out of the state, the taxes the dealerships collect, the taxes the dealership collects should be remitted to Indiana, even if there is no state reciprocity agreement between the two states, or the purchasing state has ad valorem tax.
Okay, I just want to clarify a few things here. One, I know people like to use reciprocity in situations with personal motor vehicles, but there is no reciprocity with any state. This is not a matter of reciprocity, meaning that there's no reciprocal agreements between states. Every state except for Mississippi, Arkansas, West Virginia has a law in their books saying that if you pay sales tax to another state, when you bring that item back to the state, you get a credit for sales tax paid in the other state against the use tax that you would owe to your home state. So that applies to everything from vehicles to jewelry to TVs, whatever you purchased in one state and paid sales tax on. When you take it back to your home state, you're going to owe use tax on the item, but you'll get a credit for the sales tax paid. So in the situation where a vehicle is, I also just want to clarify too, when a dealership is selling a vehicle to a purchaser that is going to take that vehicle to another state, they're receiving that vehicle at the Indiana dealership, the dealership is collecting Indiana sales tax. This is not tax that is going to be remitted to the Indiana Department of Revenue and then distributed to other states. It is Indiana sales tax staying in Indiana. It's not the home state's not getting any portion of that. So if you sell a vehicle to a customer that lives out of state, what you're collecting should be remitted to Indiana, as Martha's asking, even if there's no credit between the two states, or even if the home state does not provide a credit for that tax. So whether it's Ohio, which does provide a credit, or it's Arkansas, which doesn't provide a credit, you are collecting Indiana sales tax regardless. And then when they get back to their home state to register the vehicle, the DMV of that state will figure out how much taxes are. They'll either provide a credit for taxes paid or they won't. The issue of the ad valorem tax, the statute's a little funny that allows for Indiana dealerships to collect Indiana sales tax at the rate of the home state. It doesn't specify whether that the state, it just talks about tax rate. It doesn't talk about whether the state where it's going to be registered has a sales tax or an ad valorem tax, or whether it's anything else. So we've had to make that determination of the rate that's supposed to be collected by looking at all 50 states and determining what that rate should be. So I encourage you to just look at that chart that Nancy mentioned earlier that says what rate to collect. And because we've already made that determination about whether it's what the rate should be. I hope that helps.
I have a question to piggyback off of that. For states that have a 0% tax rate, for example, like Alaska, or a few others, and the customer's taking delivery and possession of the vehicle in Indiana, that would be, I'm assuming, subject to needing to include a sales tax form, but with that being a non-resident and also not collecting any sales tax because their state is 0%, which form would we use for that tax disclosure?
It'd still be the same form, same process. It would just, the rate is just 0%. So
an NR just at 0. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody else have a follow-up on that, or no?
It's complicated, and I know there's still confusion about, I know a lot of dealerships, I've heard through the grapevine that some dealerships are telling their customers that Indiana Department of Revenue will remit the taxes that they collect to their home state. That's not what happens. We keep the tax. It's just that the home state provides a credit for it. I've also heard, some dealerships are telling. I'm kind of lost my train of thought, but I know it's complicated, and hopefully this presentation helps clear some of that stuff up. I do also want to bring something up while I'm talking about the tire fees. I've heard through the grapevine that some dealerships are charging $1.25, so 25 cents per tire. They're charging $1.25, even though there's no spare tire in the with the vehicle. So you'd want to make sure that you're only charging 25 cents per tire included in the vehicle. I noticed that it's probably an issue of it being hardwired into the point of sale system, that the $1.25 is just charged automatically, but you need to make sure that the correct amount is charged per tire in the vehicle, and not charging $1.25 because of historically that's how much was charged. So just be aware of that.
I just wanted to add something to the sales tax that you're collecting when the customer comes into the state of Indiana and purchases their vehicle, and we collect their state sales tax. I mean, the rate at their state's sales tax rate, because it is Indiana sales tax. But you also have to be aware that you need to be registered for the ST103 car form, because the auditor is going to be looking at your total taxable sales. And normally we always did it by 7%, and that's what you should have remitted. Well, now that you're collecting at different rates, you have to fill out the form, the ST103 car, and you do have to be registered for that, so we can see the other tax that you're collecting that is being calculated at your customer's state sales tax rate and not Indiana's. So I just wanted to bring that up. And those, you would have to have the ST108 or ST108NR in the sales jacket.
And I'd just like to clarify for cargo trailer dealers, my understanding is as long as the customer is from a state that is not one of the 11 non-reciprocal states, if they take possession inside the state of Indiana to document that they are tax exempt for cargo trailers, we use Form ST-137RV for tax exemption purposes, but if they are subject to Indiana sales taxes, we still use that 108NR.
Correct. That is correct.
Gotcha. And one more quick follow-up for cargo trailer dealers. I think it was mentioned earlier, I had to step out with the customer, but with the tire tax, whenever we sell a trailer, whether it's new or used, is that also subject to that tire tax, 25 cents per tire on the trailer?
It would not be if it's a self-propelled trailer. The tire tax does not apply to that.
Okay, so with trailers that go behind semi trucks.
My understanding is those would not be subject to tax if they're not, if they have to be hooked up and they're a self-propelled trailer. Those are not subject to the tire tax.
Great, thank you.
All right, we had one more question come in. So Lacey asked, in the event of an out-of-state customer wants to wrap their county or local taxes into their loan, how should we show that on the bill of sale? Should that be listed in the sales tax and then a check written to the customer for that additional amount?
I wouldn't include it in the sales tax because that might look weird for an auditor. Maybe Debbie, I don't know how you feel about that.
It would definitely trigger an audit because it would be overstated, and they should not put the sales tax. They should only put the Indiana sales tax on the sales tax line, and then add another line showing what they're financing, the other local tax that's being financed and what they're asking for. I think they have to do that in order for the loan to be accepted anyway. I think that it would not be processed if they didn't show that separate.
Okay. Does anybody else have any additional questions? I know we've gone over just a couple of minutes. Okay. Well, no more questions have came in. So thank you, Nancy and Debbie and Colin. I appreciate it. Lots of good information there that you've shared, and lots of interaction on the Q&A. So we really appreciate that. So as I said, we are about 6 minutes over. So we will now break for a lunch. It will be for an hour. So let's say that we'll break now and come back at like let's just a round number, let's do it at 12:55. So if everybody could be back at 12:55, we will pick back up with the Attorney General's presentation. So that'll be all for now. So it'll be up to you if you wanted to stay on the meeting and mute or rejoin, but I will be stopping the recording for now, and then it will pick that back up when we return from lunch. So thank you, everybody.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks, Luke. And thanks, Colin and Debbie, for doing the heavy lifting on that Q&A part.
Thank you.
Thank you.